There's so much information available on the internet that sometimes it can be hard for people to interpret everything that they get. I'm a firm believer in spending all the time that's necessary in order for patients and their families to fully understand what's going on to make a good decision.
Hi, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, September 27th. Well, it's a little more than 8 months since Donald Trump was inaugurated as president. You may remember he said that he hoped the day after he was inaugurated to be able to sign an Obamacare repeal bill. Well, 8 months later, there is no Obamacare repeal, and the Republicans in the Senate announced this week that they're giving up again on the latest effort, which was, by the way, the worst of them all. I don't think they're done yet, but for the time being, they're going to turn their attention elsewhere. Governor Asa Hutchinson said he was terribly sorry to see the failure of the Graham-Cassidy bill. I don't think 330,000 or really as many as 400,000 Arkansas people feel the same way. They've had health insurance thanks to the Obamacare Medicaid expansion. They also have coverage for pre-existing conditions. They also have coverage for maternal care, for birth control pills, and other very important aspects of health care. They're happy to keep it for a little while longer. It may not last forever. The new attention goes to tax reform, so-called. Reform's a loaded word, of course. The Republicans have released a plan to cut taxes. It reduces the income tax brackets from 7 to 3. It actually raises the highest, the bracket on the bottom end from 10 to 12% is the lowest possible thing. They say they'll make that up with an increase in the standard deduction. They keep the charitable and mortgage interest deductions. But an important point for some people in Arkansas, they take away a deduction for the state income tax. They end the estate tax. There's going to be a lot more to come on this and months of debate, and I don't think it'll end in its final form, whatever happens. But the subject has now begun. We'll see if Donald Trump can be more successful with that than he's been with some other things so far this year. Johnny Key, the state education commissioner, gave an interview to Skip Rutherford, the dean of the Clinton School, on one of those midday programs the Clinton School holds. It was streamed live on the internet. Key said he hoped there'd be a school election in the Little Rock School District by the end of 2018, where the district can once again control its own destiny as a Democratic school district. That would be almost 4 years after the district was taken over by the state. He defended the proliferation of charter schools. He didn't do a very good job of it by saying, no, they don't just approve all charter schools. And then he gave as an example a case where the state education board overrode department recommendation and allowed a charter school to continue operating despite persistent failing test scores. Elsewhere, Donald Trump seems intent on making Puerto Rico his Katrina. He refuses to waive a rule that will allow foreign ships to deliver emergency aid supplies to Puerto Rico. He did waive this rule for Texas and Florida hurricane victims. He said he had to bow to industry demands in terms of helping Puerto Rican. I mean, they're not real Americans after all. Well, really, they are American citizens, something that a lot of people don't know. Wow, Alabama elected Roy Moore. At least they didn't elect him. They nominated him as a Republican nominee for U.S. Senate. He'll face a Democrat in December. He'll still be favored to win. He's the former Supreme Court justice who doesn't believe in the rule of law, who believes homosexuality should be criminalized. He's a theocrat who said all kinds of crazy things, but the main thing is he's no friend of Donald Trump. Trump endorsed his opponent, and he won't necessarily fall readily in line with other members of Congress in the Republican Party. He's particularly a foe of Mitch McConnell. So at least those of us on the other side of that political divide perhaps can have some schadenfreude about the distress within the Republican Party over that latest split. Well, Judge Billy Roy Wilson has again struck down a state law on panhandling. The legislature, having had one law struck down in 2016, tried again in 2017. Excuse me, the ACLU sued again. And again, the judge says, no, you cannot regulate content of speech, which the state attempted to do by making begging for money unconstitutional. They added something that said, well, if you do it in a harassing or threatening way, but this is such a generalized, non-specific thing that the judge said no, it still failed to pass constitutional muster. Attorney General Leslie Rutledge lost another one against the First Amendment. It sounds like she may yet appeal. She usually does. Interesting lawsuit, speaking of state laws, filed in Georgia. Georgia University professors have filed a lawsuit over that state new law that allows you to take a concealed carry weapon on Georgia college campuses. The interesting point is, Arkansas has a new law that does just the same thing, and it hasn't quite gone into practical effect yet. But the Georgia lawsuit says that the Georgia Constitution says clearly that the state can't usurp authority from the governing body, the Board of Regents of the University of Georgia. Arkansas, too, has a constitutional amendment that seems to say Arkansas universities are independent and the legislature can't meddle too much with how they govern themselves. In the past, the University of Arkansas and other college boards have refused to allow guns on campus. The legislature then this year made it mandatory. Is there a lawsuit in Arkansas similar to that in Georgia? Well, there are a lot of complications, political mostly. We love our guns in Arkansas, and the Arkansas Supreme Court has become more and more willing to go along with the wishes of the legislature. But in any event, Georgia might provide an object lesson for us. A couple of industrial announcements today, including this morning, 120 new jobs for a window plant in Mountain Home. Something else coming this afternoon from Northwest Arkansas. Don't have the details yet. Thursday, we'll have a race for Pulaski County Clerk. Larry Crane, who's done a great job in that job, is retiring next year. His son, Chris Crane, who's currently the state film commissioner, is going to announce his candidacy tomorrow. Chris Burks, the state Democratic Party counsel, who's also been very active in a lot of voting rights efforts, both as a lawyer and a plaintiff in lawsuits, also plans to announce for that office too. Well, 60 years of progress. We've been talking a lot about this because of the 60th anniversary of Little Rock school crisis. And national commentators are writing about it too, this time because of the blowback to NFL football players who are protesting police brutality in a way that white people find uncomfortable and want them to shut up, to put it mildly. Great new article in the New Yorker talks about how little progress we've made, and once again, Little Rock serves as an object lesson. In 1957, when the school crisis was hot, Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, the great trumpeter, called Orville Faubus, the Arkansas governor, then everything short of a well, you know, he used the MF word, just about as bad as you can get. As a result, he had a foreign tour canceled. He had unkind things to say about President Eisenhower. Didn't shut Satchmo up, and I don't suspect Donald Trump will shut up black athletes of today either. They don't think white people own them anymore as much as white people might think otherwise. I'm resisting, you might be able to tell. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.